Hi everyone, Peter here from Flow High Performance, and in this video we will cover how to use the concept of reps in reserve for hypertrophy training. First, let's cover what exactly the concept of reps in reserve is. Reps in reserve, or RIR for short, is a scale or system which allows trainees to subjectively rate how close a given set was taken before failure. The RIR system uses numbers to gauge how many reps were performed before failure. So basically the scale looks like this. An RIR of 0 means that no more reps could have been performed in that set, or in other words, the set was taken to complete failure. An RIR of 1 means that 1 more rep could have been performed before failure. An RIR of 2 means that 2 more reps could have been performed before failure, and so on. To make this more understandable, let's use an example. Let's say a trainee can lift 60 kilos in the bench press for 10 reps as their absolute max. So if a trainee lifts 60 kilos for 10 reps, that is an RIR of 0 because they could not have performed any more reps in that set. However, if the trainee only performed 9 reps, for example, this would be considered an RIR of 1. This is because they could have performed 10 reps, but they left 1 rep in the tank. If they performed 8 reps with the same weight, this would be an RIR of 2 because they had 2 reps left before failure, and so on. It should also be understood that reps in reserve is specific to the individual set you perform. This means that it will be influenced by fatigue throughout a workout, so performance is likely to drop off throughout a workout even if the reps in reserve stays the same. If we take the same example trainee from before, we can demonstrate this point. Let's say this trainee performs 3 sets of bench press with 60 kilos at an RIR of 1. So on the first set they will get 9 reps because 60 kilos is their 10 rep max. On the second set they may perform 8 reps at an RIR of 1 and 7 reps on the third set. This is because as the trainee fatigues, performance will drop off and reps performed will lower. Therefore, trainees should abide by the reps in reserve prescription and adjust load based on rep performance. It should also be understood that reps in reserve is specific to the technique used for each set. This means that we shouldn't change our form in order to perform more reps in a set. The same strict technique should be used for every single rep in that set, and the reps in reserve should be applied to reps with the same strict technique. For example, if a trainee wants to perform bicep curls with an RIR of 1, curls should be performed until the trainee can only perform 1 more rep with the same strict technique. The trainee may be able to perform more reps if they swing the arms to use momentum, but this shouldn't be included as reps in the set. Now that we understand what the reps in reserve system is, we can explore why reps in reserve can be a useful tool for hypertrophy training. Firstly, it is important to understand how proximity to failure impacts hypertrophy. We know that hypertrophy can be equally achieved across a spectrum of different loads and rep ranges, provided that sets are taken fairly close to failure. So we can achieve an equal hypertrophy stimulus per set when training anywhere in the 6 to 30 rep range. This is because when sets are taken close to failure, all motor units are recruited and trained by the end of the set. Heavier loads don't need to be taken as close to failure to maximize hypertrophy because the high threshold motor units will be recruited earlier in the set. However, lighter loads need to be taken closer to failure because the high threshold motor units won't be recruited from the start of the set and will only kick in once the low threshold motor units have fatigued. As a practical guide, sets in the 6 to 12 rep range should be taken around 1 to 3 reps in reserve, while sets of more than 12 should be taken around 0 to 2 reps in reserve. So reps in reserve can be prescribed to ensure trainees are taking each set to the appropriate proximity to failure so that hypertrophy is maximized with each set. This also has implications for volume quantification. Since hypertrophy can be equally achieved across a spectrum of different loads and rep ranges, volume for hypertrophy training can be quantified as the number of sets trained per muscle group per week. This is because if each set is taken fairly close to failure, the exact rep range and load doesn't really matter. This makes it very convenient to quantify volume and make changes to volume over time. Using the reps in reserve system can also help trainees individualize training based on their rate of progression. Novice trainees will progress at a faster rate, while advanced lifters will progress at a much slower rate. Furthermore, rate of progression will change sporadically based on external factors and changes to the training program. By prescribing reps in reserve, it allows trainees to progress at their own individual rate, regardless of training status or individual situation. This is because each set is performed to the subjective proximity to failure of the individual trainee. So a more novice trainee may experience some form of progress from week to week, while a more advanced trainee may only see slow progress over multiple mesocycles. So even though the program is the same, the trainees can see progress at their own individual rate. So how can we use the RIR system in a training program? Well, essentially we can program the number of sets for each exercise and the reps in reserve. This way, rep ranges and loads can be adjusted based on the performance of the individual. We can then track progress over time by comparing performance from week to week and from mesocycle to mesocycle. Here is an example of how we can use reps in reserve within a hypertrophy training program. As we can see here, we have used the bench press as an example once again. Let's say the trainee performs 3 sets with an RIR of 1 to 2. So they want to take each set approximately 1 to 2 reps before failure. The exact RIR prescription doesn't matter to any significant degree as long as the trainee hits the rough proximity to failure goal. In this example, let's say the trainee performs 60 kilos in the first week. For the first set they get 9 reps, the second set they get 8 reps, and the third set they perform 7 reps. As fatigue accumulates, performance will naturally decrease throughout a workout. Now in week 2, let's say the trainee performs 9 reps in the first set, 8 reps in the second set, and 8 reps in the third set. In week 3, the trainee may want to try 65 kilos. So in the first set, they perform 65 kilos for 7 reps. If the trainee keeps 65 kilos for the next 2 sets, rep ranges may drop too low to be maximally effective. So the trainee may drop the load back to 60 kilos and lift in a slightly higher rep range. Here, they may perform 9 and 8 reps for the next 2 sets respectively. And in week 4, the trainee lifts 65 kilos for 8 reps in the first set, 60 kilos for 10 reps in the second set, and 60 kilos for 9 reps in the third set. So it doesn't actually matter what the exact load and rep ranges are, as long as each set is taken to the appropriate reps in reserve prescription and rep ranges fall within the hypertrophy range. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already.